This is the story of Lena Carter, a 23-year-old woman who thought she had her whole life planned, until one shocking moment turned everything upside down. Lena lived in a small town outside Riverford, a quiet place where everyone mostly knew everyone else. At 23, she was full of energy, independence, and big dreams. She worked as a skincare specialist, rented a small apartment, and felt proud of standing on her own 2 feet. Marriage, kids, and settling down? Those were ideas for future Lena, not the version of her living in the moment. At the start of that year, Lena made a bold promise to herself. This was going to be her yes year. A year of fun, freedom, and memories. She booked trips, concerts, festivals. Something exciting for almost every month. Her friends joked that she was trying to squeeze 10 years of living into one. And honestly, she loved it. One warm summer weekend, during a crowded outdoor music festival, Lena met Ethan Brooks. He was calm where she was impulsive, quiet where she was loud. He worked as a site coordinator for a construction company and had that grounded, steady energy that made people feel safe around him. They talked, laughed, danced, and before the night ended, exchanged numbers. What started as casual texting turned into dates. Late-night drives, shared meals, and easy conversations followed. But neither of them wanted anything serious. They both said it clearly. No pressure, no expectations. A few months later, the spark slowly faded. No big argument, no drama. Life just pulled them in different directions. They stopped seeing each other, and Lena moved on, checking off the next adventure on her growing list. Or so she thought. That November, on what should have been a normal Friday, Lena woke up feeling off. She noticed some bleeding and cramps. Annoying, but not alarming. She assumed it was just her cycle acting up again. She took some painkillers, got dressed, and went to work like usual. All day the discomfort grew stronger. By the afternoon, it was hard to stand straight. Still, she pushed through. Lena had always been that kind of person. Tough, independent, unwilling to ask for help. When her shift finally ended, she retreated to the back room of the salon, thinking she just needed a moment to lie down. That's when everything changed. As she adjusted her clothes, she noticed something that didn't make sense. Something her brain refused to process. For a split second, she thought she was imagining it. Then reality hit her like a wave. There, right in front of her, was a baby's head. Lena froze. Her heart raced. Her ears rang. The room felt unreal, like a bad dream she couldn't wake up from. She hadn't known she was pregnant. Not even for a second. No symptoms she recognized. No weight gain she questioned. Nothing. Shock took over. Panic followed. She lay there, barely breathing, her mind screaming questions with no answers. She didn't know what to do. She didn't know how this was happening. She didn't even know if she was safe. Time blurred. Instinct kicked in when logic couldn't. Lena noticed the umbilical cord change color. With shaking hands, she grabbed the only tool nearby, a small pair of eyebrow scissors, and cut it. Tears streamed down her face as she wrapped the tiny baby girl in towels, trying to keep her warm. Her phone was dead. Of course it was. She left the baby for a moment, heart pounding, and rushed into the next room to plug her phone in. Every second felt endless. Every sound made her flinch. She kept looking back, terrified something might go wrong. As if that wasn't enough, another terrifying moment followed in the bathroom. Lena experienced something she didn't understand, something she had never been taught about. Fear consumed her again, and for a moment she truly believed there might be another baby. She was shaking, crying, completely overwhelmed. When her phone finally turned on, Lena immediately called emergency services. Her voice was barely steady. She wasn't even sure how to explain what had happened. Within minutes, help was on the way. When the paramedics arrived, the questions came fast. They checked the baby, reassured Lena, and carefully helped them both into the ambulance. Only then did the reality begin to sink in. During the ride, Lena sent one short message to her mother. "I've had a baby. We're okay. Please meet me at the hospital." Her hands trembled as she hit send. At the hospital, doctors and nurses took over. Lena's mom and stepfather arrived shortly after. Her mother's face showed pure shock, but also joy. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. But she was already in grandmother mode, holding back tears as she looked at the tiny baby girl. For Lena, the emotions were complicated. Fear mixed with disbelief. Love tangled with doubt. She stared at the baby, unsure if she was ready for this new life that had been dropped into her arms without warning. The next day, everything shifted. Her mom gently asked her a simple question. "What do you want to name her?" Lena hesitated. Then, softly, she said a name. Mia. In that moment, something clicked. Naming her made it real, made it personal, made it hers. The fear didn't disappear, but it softened. The bond formed quietly, deeply, in a way Lena had never experienced before. 3 days later, after being discharged, Lena faced another big decision. There was someone who deserved to know. She sent a message to Ethan. "I had a baby. She's yours." Minutes later, her phone rang. Ethan was stunned, silent at first, then emotional, then happy, really happy. The next morning, he came to the hospital and stayed all day. No awkwardness, no anger, just two people staring at a tiny human they created without ever knowing it. They talked, laughed, sat in silence, shared looks that said more than words ever could. And without realizing it, they began spending more time together again. Before we continue, if stories like this keep you curious and you enjoy emotional, real-life journeys full of unexpected twists, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss what happens next. Because this story is only just beginning. As Lena adjusted to motherhood, she questioned everything she thought she knew about herself. Could she do this? Could she be strong enough? Could she build a future she never planned for? And slowly, as days turned into weeks, one thing became clear. This baby hadn't just arrived unexpectedly. She had arrived with a purpose. In the next part, we'll see how two people who never planned a future together began to wonder if fate had other ideas, and how love can grow in the most unlikely circumstances. Time passed in a strange, dreamlike way. Days blended into nights, and Lena often found herself awake at 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling while little Mia slept beside her. The world felt quieter now, heavier somehow, like everything mattered more than it ever had before. Motherhood didn't arrive gently. It came with exhaustion, self-doubt, and moments when Lena locked herself in the bathroom just to breathe. There were nights when Mia cried endlessly, and Lena cried with her, whispering apologies to a baby who couldn't understand words, but somehow understood tone. She loved her daughter deeply, but love didn't erase fear. Meanwhile, Ethan started showing up more and more. At first, it was practical. He brought diapers, helped clean, offered to hold Mia so Lena could shower. He didn't push, he didn't rush, he simply stayed. That surprised Lena. She had expected confusion, maybe distance, even resentment. Instead, Ethan asked questions, learned quickly. He watched how Lena soothed Mia and copied her movements carefully, like he was afraid of doing something wrong. One afternoon, while Mia slept between them on the couch, Ethan finally said what had been hanging in the air for weeks. "I know this wasn't planned," he said quietly, "but I want to be here. For her. And for you. If you'll let me." Lena didn't answer right away. She looked at her daughter's tiny chest rising and falling. She thought about how her life had split into a before and after, and how Ethan somehow existed in both. "I don't know what I'm doing," she admitted. "I don't either," he replied. And for the first time in weeks, she smiled. They didn't label anything. No big talks about relationships, no promises. They just shared space, shared responsibility, shared exhaustion. And somehow, in the middle of all that chaos, something warm began to grow again. But not everything was easy. There were awkward moments. Old habits clashed with new realities. Lena was protective, sometimes overly so. Ethan, trying to be helpful, sometimes felt like an outsider in his own child's life. One night, after a small disagreement about feeding schedules, Ethan grabbed his jacket and said, "Maybe I should give you space." The door closed louder than intended. Lena sat on the floor, holding Mia, heart pounding. She hated the tension. Hated feeling like she might lose the one person who had chosen to stay when everything fell apart. That night, she texted him first. "I don't want space. I want you here." He came back within minutes. They didn't argue. They didn't explain. He just sat next to her on the floor, and they leaned into each other, exhausted but relieved. As weeks turned into months, their rhythm improved. They learned how to communicate without snapping, how to support without controlling, how to laugh again, even when things went wrong. Lena noticed the small things. The way Ethan always checked Mia's bottle temperature twice. How he made up silly songs during diaper changes. How Mia's face lit up when she heard his voice. That's when Lena realized something scared her more than becoming a mother. She was falling in love again. And this time, it wasn't light or careless. It was heavy, serious, rooted in responsibility and shared survival. One evening, while they walked with Mia's stroller through a quiet park, Ethan stopped suddenly. "Do you ever think about us?" he asked. Lena's heart skipped. She did think about it, constantly. But saying it out loud felt dangerous. "I do," she admitted. "I just don't want to mess this up." Ethan nodded. "Me neither, but I don't want to ignore it either." They stood there in silence, the baby sleeping peacefully between them. That moment didn't feel rushed or dramatic. It felt honest. They decided to try again, slowly. No pressure, no pretending they were the same people as before. Because they weren't. Life kept testing them. Financial stress crept in. Sleepless nights returned during growth spurts. Lena struggled with guilt. Guilt for moments she missed her old life. Guilt for moments she felt overwhelmed. Guilt for moments she wondered who she even was anymore. One night, she finally broke down. "I don't feel like myself," she cried. "I don't recognize my life." Ethan held her tightly. "Maybe that's because you've grown," he said. "Maybe you're becoming someone stronger." Those words stayed with her. Slowly, Lena began rebuilding herself. Not the old version, but a new one. A mother, a partner, a woman who had survived shock, fear, and uncertainty, and was still standing. Years passed faster than she expected. Mia grew from a fragile newborn into a curious little girl with endless questions and fearless laughter. She adored her father, followed him everywhere, called him her hero. Lena watched them together and felt something close to awe. The man who once drifted in and out of her life was now firmly rooted in it, present, patient, devoted. Their love didn't explode dramatically. It settled. It deepened. It became steady and reliable. The kind of love built through late-night feedings and shared worries. Then came another surprise, a positive pregnancy test. This time, Lena laughed, cried, shook her head in disbelief. But there was no fear, no shock, just acceptance and quiet joy. Their second child, Noah, arrived 2 years later. Planned, expected, and deeply loved. Watching Ethan hold their son, Lena felt her heart stretch even wider than she thought possible. Mia took her role as big sister very seriously. She helped. She protected. She loved fiercely. One warm evening, years after that first impossible day, Ethan led Lena into the backyard. The kids were asleep. The world was quiet. He knelt down. Lena already knew the answer before he spoke. Later that night, she lay in bed, staring at the ceiling once again. But this time, her heart was calm. Life hadn't gone according to plan. It had gone somewhere better. And the lesson Lena learned through every twist, every tear, every unexpected turn was simple. Sometimes the most beautiful chapters begin without warning. And the love you never planned for can end up saving you in ways you never imagined. The house was never quiet anymore. Toys on the floor, laughter echoing through the halls, tiny footsteps running from room to room. What once felt overwhelming had slowly become the soundtrack of Lena's life. And somehow, she wouldn't trade it for anything. Mornings began early. Mia insisted on picking her own clothes, even when nothing matched. Noah woke up smiling, reaching for anyone nearby. And Ethan? He was always the first one in the kitchen, pretending he knew how to cook while making a mess that left everyone laughing. Years ago, Lena couldn't imagine this version of herself. Back then, she measured time by trips and plans. Now, she measured it by milestones. First words, first steps, first days of school. And yet, not everything was perfect. There were moments when the past crept in. Doubt whispered late at night. Lena sometimes wondered how different her life might have been if that unexpected day had never happened. One evening, after the kids were finally asleep, she sat alone on the couch, scrolling through old photos on her phone. Festivals, smiles, a carefree girl she barely recognized. Ethan noticed. "You miss it sometimes, don't you?" he asked gently. Lena nodded. "Not because it was better," she said, "but because it was simpler." Ethan sat beside her and took her hand. "It's okay to miss who you were," he said. "That doesn't mean you regret who you've become." Those words settled deep inside her. As time went on, Lena became more open about her story. Friends were shocked. Strangers were curious. Some women reached out privately, admitting they'd experienced strange symptoms, unexplained changes, fears they couldn't explain. Lena realized her story wasn't just hers anymore. She learned about hidden pregnancies, how rare they were, yet how real. How women could go months without knowing, without signs, without answers. And she spoke about it openly, not for attention, but for awareness. For the women who might one day find themselves confused, scared, and alone. Watching her children grow became her greatest joy. Mia was protective and kind, always watching over her little brother. Noah followed her everywhere, convinced his sister knew everything about the world. Lena loved seeing the bond they shared, a bond that had been formed through chaos, love, and resilience. As their wedding day slowly approached, they chose not to rush. They wanted their children to be part of it, to understand it, to remember it. Sometimes Mia would ask, "Mom, how did you and Dad fall in love?" Lena would smile, take a breath, and answer honestly, It wasn't fast, she'd say, and it wasn't easy. But it was real. On the night before sending out their wedding invitations, Lena stood by the window, watching the lights outside flicker. She thought about how life had surprised her, again and again. She thought about fear, about strength, about how the hardest moments had shaped her the most. And she thought about gratitude, grateful for the child who arrived without warning, grateful for the man who chose to stay, grateful for the family she never planned, but desperately needed. Before we wrap this story up, if this journey moved you, surprised you, or made you feel something, don't forget to like this video and support the channel so more real stories like this can be shared. Because stories like Lena remind us of something important. Life doesn't always follow our plans. But sometimes, when everything falls apart, something even better comes together. The lesson she carries with her now is simple but powerful. You don't have to be ready for love for it to find you. You just have to be brave enough to grow when it does. And sometimes, the moment that scares you the most becomes the moment that saves you.